engulfed in ignorance, when I was drowning in an ocean of tears, when misery had tied me down. Oh Prabhupada, you became my savior. You became my savior. You became my savior. You became my savior. Savior, savior.
This is my home. I have got grandchildren, so I have come to see them.
You came as night with flowers knowledge, nectar from your words soothed our wounds. Service to Krishna was your bold message. Oh Prabhupada, you're my only savior. You're my only savior. You're my only savior. You're my only savior. Savior, savior. Here and forever, you're my only savior. Forever and forever, you're my only savior. Service to thy feet is so sweet. Our only savior, Prabhupada.
I see this place is very nice, and you are also very nice. Take advantage of this opportunity and go on chanting Hare Krishna mantra and watch the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He will bless you sufficiently to become successful in getting shelter of the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Thank you.
World is all ablaze without Krishna's gaze. Mindless rat race, it's Maya's craze. Only by grace we can escape this maze. Oh Prabhupada, you'll be my savior. You'll be my savior. You'll be my savior. You'll be my savior. Savior, savior. Here and forever, you're my only savior. Forever and forever, you're my only savior. Service to thy feet is so sweet. Our only savior, Prabhupada, savior.
Don't risk your life. So what is the difficulty to become Krishna conscious? You have got nice deity, Krishna is present to take your service, and be pure, eat nice prasadam, chant Hare Krishna, dance, and go back to home.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Savior, Prabhupada.
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. A very warm welcome to all of you. Today we will be discussing Further pastimes of Srila Prabhupada after the formal inauguration of the Sankirtan movement in Tompkins Square Park on the land of United States of America. So today Srila Prabhupada, we will be discussing how he went to West in the West. So New York is situated on the east coast of America, and it is said the further west you go, more is the materialism. So Srila Prabhupada had some good disciples, very sincere disciples in the New York City who were seekers of spiritual life, and they started following rules and regulations very strictly. They got initiated, and they all started helping Swamiji by working very hard, doing the errands and dedicating their lives, even taking up the traditional Vedic get-up. But the scene was very different on the west coast of America, San Francisco. But how Srila Prabhupada goes there, how Krishna makes arrangement, all this we will see. Before this, let us see what happened after the Tompkins Square Park event. Hare Krishna was becoming popular. Regular kirtans in the parks, newspaper coverage, and the devotees called it the Hare Krishna explosion. So Hare Krishna was the word of the town on the Lower East Side, and many people were coming. And Srila Prabhupada never experienced such a huge audience. The hall was packed. But these people were very interested in just the kirtan. That is why it is told for Kali Yuga, this is the Yug Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan. There is no question, there is no contradiction. Everybody can sing and participate, focusing on the sound vibration and swaying with the melody. However, philosophy is not meant for everyone, but that is required. So once a person gets sufficient Sukriti, mind becomes stable, then philosophy can be taught. However, Srila Prabhupada was never compromising on any portions. So after Sankirtan, as soon as Srila Prabhupada would start speaking philosophy, then as soon as Kirtan is over, before even hearing what Prabhupada is going to speak, people would get up and leave. And some people would get up in the middle of the lecture and they would leave. Half of the storefront would be empty. But Prabhupada never compromised, as people might do, that let me hold the crowd, speak something which can hold their attention. No. If you see the early lectures of Prabhupada also, we have the recordings of 66 and those days. Prabhupada is speaking in the same way that he spoke 5-10 years later in India or in any other country of the West. But Prabhupada is giving the same explanation of pure Krishna consciousness, knowledge of absolute truth. Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagwan, what is the aim of human form of life? Everything belongs to God. So we are meant to engage everything in the service of God, reviving our lost relationship with God and going back to a place far away from this material world, back to Godhead. That is the aim of life. Although some people could not appreciate, but Prabhupada never compromised. He just gave the direct thing. And he was waiting for the right people who have the capacity to understand this philosophy. They would be able to accept it. One big challenge which Srila Prabhupada faced in the West was people were so much addicted to drugs and sex. So drugs, we saw how Srila Prabhupada tackled it. Srila Prabhupada gave the example. You feel LSD can give you higher consciousness. Then what is Krishna consciousness? That is room full of LSD. And then Prabhupada explained how drugs are actually hindering your consciousness, real advancement of spiritual consciousness. And now came the turn how to tackle this sex life, which was very prominent in the West. So one evening, Allen Ginsberg brought Ed Sanders and Tooley of the Fugs to the meeting. What is Fugs? Fugs, a local group that had made a name for themselves, specialized in obscene lyrics. The night of the Fugs, however, Swamiji chose to speak on the illusion of sex pleasure. So these are people who are making money by singing obscene songs. So any normal person would think, let us not touch this topic because it's very difficult to dissuade them from something they are very pro. So let us speak upon some neutral topic like that. But the topic which Prabhupada chose was Illusion of sexual pleasure. Prabhupada spoke. Sex pleasure binds us to this material world birth after birth, he said. And he quoted, as often he did, a verse of Yamunacharya. He said, "Since I have become Krishna conscious, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it and I spit at the thought." So there is a very famous shloka Prabhupada has quoted in many places. Yamunacharya is the spiritual master of Sripad Ramanujacharya, one of the prominent acharyas who established devotion in this country. So Yamunacharya says, Yadavadhi mama cheta Krishna padara vindayor navanava dham nyudyat rantumasid. Because he was a king before, he took sannyas and became a devotee. So kings have so much of sensual pleasures. So Yamunacharya tells, when I think of the pleasures I have enjoyed with many women, now that I've been thinking of lotus feet of Krishna, I am relishing newer pleasures every day. And when I think of all those old activities, nasty activities of enjoyment with women, my mouth curls in distaste and I spit at the thought. Just imagine. Sex pleasure is driving people mad. And so many crimes are happening, and the entire internet, so many apps are running. The entire advertising industry, marketing things are done just basis this knot of attraction between man and woman. Very difficult to cut. But the pleasure of Krishna consciousness, simply meditating upon lotus feet of Krishna, is so high if a person is able to perfect this art, this science, that a person will spit at this thought. This is pleasure of Krishna consciousness. You can just imagine. My face at once turns from it and I spit at the thought. And what was the result of such preaching? The fugs never returned. So the disciples became a little disappointed. Some of them who were instrumental in bringing that, Prabhupada, you chose to speak on this topic. They are very famous in the country. We could have slowly cultivated them. To speak ill of sexual pleasure was certainly not a strategic move for one who wanted to create followers among the Lower East Side hippies. But Bhaktivedanta Swami never considered changing his message. In fact, when Umapati had mentioned that Americans did not like to hear that sex was only for conceiving children, Bhaktivedanta Swami had replied, I cannot change the philosophy to please the Americans. So this was Prabhupada's mood. I have not come here to please the Americans. I cannot change my philosophy. Those who can, they will understand. So this is the boldness of an acharya. They are completely convinced, uncompromising instruction they give without any change. This is called Guru Shishya Parampara. The knowledge comes without any change, without any dilution and compromise. What about sex? Asked the ISKCON attorney, Steve Goldsmith, one evening speaking out from the rear of the crowded temple. Swamiji said, sex should be only with one's wife, and that is also restricted. Sex is for the propagation of Krishna conscious children. My spiritual master used to say that to beget Krishna conscious children, he was prepared to have sex 100 times. Of course, that is most difficult in this age, therefore he remained a brahmachari. So the purpose of all the activities, this is very important point we have to understand. You enter a factory, you may find many interesting things over there. So if you are given a chance to come inside basis your qualification, then inside you have many big tools, machines, computers, and you are given training how to use it. And then when you produce something in the factory using those tools, training and equipments, you cannot carry it home. And you cannot tell, oh, it belongs to me, I have produced it. No, sir. Who gave you the instruments, the tools and training to use it? Who allowed you to come inside? So that the result, what you have produced, should be used in the interest of proprietor. And then you will get your due salary. In a similar fashion, everything God has created, is it not? We have not created all these machines. Every cell is more complex than a metropolitan city. So we have not created metropolitan city of a cellular size. that Krishna has created. And what to speak of these machines which have innumerable such cities. And one city is creating another city. Can you imagine that? Old Bombay gets destroyed, new Bombay is produced automatically. This is the mechanism of Krishna's machines. So Krishna has made all these machines. Krishna has created environment to sustain the machines. One machine exhales CO2, another machine intakes it. That machine exhales oxygen. The previous machine inhales it. In this way, there is symbiotic arrangement. So God is the most wonderful scientist and engineer. He has done all the arrangement. The instruments that we use, our brain, mind, our senses, these are given to us by God. Intelligence has been given by God. That is why whatever activity we do here, we are supposed to be doing it for the pleasure of Lord. In this way, we will also have great unlimited pleasure in our life. But, so very simple, we can understand. It is, you work in the factory very nicely, you do your job, and then you will get promoted. And you can become very close to the proprietor. You can become CEO of the company. Entire company will be given to you. That is a position of Brahma. For 100 lifetimes, if you do the duties nicely in the service of Krishna, then after 100 lifetimes, a person is promoted to the post of Brahma. Brahma is as powerful as Vishnu. But the powers are dependent upon Lord Vishnu. So in this manner, if we do engage ourselves nicely in the service of Krishna, then a person gets promoted and he remains happy, even in this material world. Because then he is not in material world. Person who is always engaged in service of Krishna, he remains on a spiritual plane, even though he is visible in this material world. So thus, any kind of activity is not wrong. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamo asmi bharatarshabha. Sex life is not prohibited. Sex life is also religious. And Krishna tells, I am that sex pleasure which is not against religion. What is against religion? Employing sex pleasure for our enjoyment. This is today's understanding. Dampatya ratim evahi. People would marry in Kali Yuga just to enjoy sex pleasure. Divorce will happen when there is no satisfaction of sexual life. Ved Vyas predicted 5000 years ago. But the purpose of married life was to produce a Krishna conscious child. So husband and wife also cannot enjoy without restriction. And pre-contraceptive era, this was the thing. There were no double beds existing. Women will sleep in separate quarters in a joint family in the house. Men would have a separate place to sleep. And only for conceiving child, before conceiving, there is Garbhadan ceremony. Priest would come and proper time they will find out, because time influences what kind of soul is going to come. Purification happens of consciousness. The consciousness of child depends upon consciousness of parents. So parents will purify their consciousness by undergoing proper rituals, chanting of the holy names. And then when they produce child, a Krishna conscious child will come out in good probability. So this is the purpose. And then obviously you will enjoy that sexual pleasure even for producing Krishna conscious child. Such kind of pleasure is allowed. If a bureaucrat is using bungalow and very nice AC car, chauffeur, butler in the service of government, he is allowed to use all these things. Rather, his comforts will increase. But if he uses the car for his own personal touring and enjoyment, family trip, then he will be dismissed from his position. As simple as that. Similar is God's arrangement. So we should try to use everything in the service of God. So Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, who was Akhanda Brahmachari, Naishtik Brahmachari, he had started a Brahmachari club when he was in school in 10th standard. People who want to always remain Brahmachari in their life. We have various clubs in schools. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj has this club of being Brahmachari always. But he also told, so that is why devotee is not against any kind of pleasure. Devotee can do something which is not at all pleasing to devotee's mind and senses, and he will leave something which is very pleasing to mind and senses. The mind and body are designed to take pleasure in something, but devotee's consideration is only pleasure of Krishna. So even though sex life may entail complications and family responsibilities and other things, but Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, Akhanda Brahmachari, he told, I can have sex 100 times, I can marry unlimited times, but if I can produce Krishna conscious child, and that is very difficult in Kali Yuga, given the circumstances, that is why he chose to remain Brahmachari. So Prabhupada gave this important message, how sex life and how much a person can indulge in. And he's speaking this to ISKCON attorney, very important man, Steve Goldsmith, one of the main pillars of support for the movement. But sex is a very strong force, Mr. Goldsmith challenged. What a man feels for a woman is undeniable. Prabhupada replied, therefore, in every culture there is an institution of marriage. All the great saints, all the great messengers of various religions, they understand the purpose behind all the pleasures that are arranged by God here. That a person is entitled to enjoy when the activity is done for the pleasure of God. That is why they have instituted marriage, so that this unrestricted sexual life can be brought under regulation. You can get yourself married and live peacefully with one woman, but the wife should not be used as a machine for sense gratification. Sex should be restricted to once a month and only for the propagation of children. Hayagriva, who was seated just to Swamiji's left beside the large dangling symbol, spoke out suddenly, only once in a month? And with a touch of facetious humor, he added loudly, better to forget the whole thing. Swamiji laughed. Yes, that's it, very good boy. And others joined him. It's best not to think of it, best just to chant Hare Krishna. And he held up his hands as if he were chanting on a strand of beads. That way we will be saved from so much botheration. Then Prabhupada explained, very simple thing, the whole world is mad about sex. If they understand this simple concept, we'll have a real picture. Prabhupada explained, sex is like the itching sensation, that's all. This is also explained in Bhagavatam. Kandu yanena karyo riva dukkha dukkha. Sex is like the itching sensation, that's all. And as when we scratch, it gets worse. So we should tolerate the itching and ask Krishna to help us. And is it easy? No, it is not easy. Prabhupada explained, it is not easy. Sex is the highest pleasure in the material world, and it is also the greatest bondage. So this is the main challenge. Out of 4, 3 regulative principles are very easy to follow. With little struggle and determination, even if a person is very much addicted, they can be given up. But giving up sexual life and not just gross, even in mind, it is difficult. It is very difficult thing. It is the greatest bondage in this material world. So that is why the entire Varnashrama system is so designed. Even if a person cannot help it just by the Gurukul training, he is allowed to enter into Grahastha ashram, but then there is facility of Vanprastha Sannyas so that person can gradually come out of it. Everyone realizes the after effects of such kind of enjoyment. So much botheration to take, there is no satisfaction. People want to enjoy in different, newer and unique ways, but satisfaction is never there. So that is why the Vedic culture tells it is like itching. The more you scratch, the itching increases and you get more and more dissatisfied. So rather try to control it completely. That is why a Varnashrama system leads ultimately to sannyas. But Steve Goldsmith, disciples could understand because they were chanting and hearing the philosophy. But Steve Goldsmith was shaking his head. Swamiji looked at him, smiling. There is still a problem? It's just that, well, it's been proved dangerous to repress the sex drive. There is a theory that we have wars because, so he's telling to restrict sex drive is dangerous. People are propounding some theories. There are wars happening maybe because people are restricting this sex life. Prabhupada stopped him in between. Prabhupada interrupted because people are eating meat. As long as people eat meat, there will be war. And if a man eats meat, he's sure to have illicit sex also. So people are making various organizations of national, international level to stop wars, but they don't understand the law of karma. God has made everybody, all the bodies, and he doesn't want pain to be given to anybody without any reason, unless they break the laws of nature. So as long as there is meat eating, wars, and so many unnecessary diseases will continue to haunt the civilization. And that is why we see people have formed so many nice bodies. So nicely they have studied the policies and everything is improved. But wars are always happening, rather increasing. This is happening because people are eating meat. Thus, human civilization has to face the repercussion. And they will be killed in wars and diseases. Steve Goldsmith was an influential friend and supporter of ISKCON, but Prabhupada would not change the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, quotes, to please the Americans, unquote. So this was Prabhupada's very unique thing, which is very difficult to find. Prabhupada never compromised on philosophy. Many national leaders, other people, they compromised seeing the situation and this thing. But Prabhupada, although it was expertise of Prabhupada that without compromising, he was able to make it palatable to all the people, this philosophy and these practices. However, there was no compromise. Prabhupada was clear from day one. As we see how when Prabhupada enters San Francisco, he makes things clear. What is the criteria for becoming his disciple? Even though nobody will be willing to take it. It was 11 p.m. and only one light was on in Swamiji's apartment in the kitchenette. Swamiji was staying up teaching Kirtanananda and Brahmananda how to cook because the next day, Sunday, they would be holding a feast for the public. Kirtanananda had suggested it will be advertised as a love feast. And Swamiji had adopted the name, although some thought it sounded strange at first to hear him say love feast. The devotees had put up posters around the neighborhood and had made a sign for the window of the storefront. And Swamiji had said he would cook enough for at least 50 people. He said the love feast should become an important part of ISKCON. As he had explained many times, food offered to Krishna becomes spiritual, and whoever eats the prasadam receives great spiritual benefit. Prasadam meant mercy. So this was additional feature in Swamiji's programs. He started holding feasts, and this special name love feast comes from Christianity. The religious feasts in Christianity are termed as love feast, and because Christianity was a predominant religion in America, so the disciples suggested we can promote our feast as a love feast, a religious feasting. So this is also a very, very important point, a very important science of which people are highly unaware, and thus they are plunging into sorrows and miseries. It is mentioned in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 13. Bhunjante te tvagam papa ye pachanti atma karanat. A person who is cooking food just for himself without offering to Krishna, he is doing agham pap. Pap means sin. Agham means very great sin. Because vegetarian or non-vegetarian killing is involved. And so much of killing. Although when you are harvesting crops, crop is already dead, so that is not killing. But sometimes you uproot the things. And then when you are cooking, there is flame. Many microbes, they die. When you drink water, again, there is so much of death. So much of death is involved in cooking process, in tilling the field, plowing, and so many other things. So all these deaths we are held accountable for if we don't offer the food to Krishna. And this Krishna does not interfere. He has created the laws of nature. We are trying to create artificial intelligence. Krishna has done it already. You kill somebody else, you will be killed. Automatically reaction will come back to you. So if we are responsible for killing, then we will also have a similar fate. It is agham pap. So people would suffer so much. So this is one thing. Another thing is the person who's cooking the food gets invested with the person's consciousness. That is where Srila Prabhupada gives example. I think it is of Jagannath Puri, if I remember correctly. So the Brahmanas, eventually, Brahman is not supposed to do a job, but Patan, Pathan, Yajan, just complete spiritual life, education. But eventually the culture got degraded and they started picking up government jobs, especially the police jobs. So these policemen who belong to Brahmana families, but still the culture was coming. So there was separate arrangement for them for their cooking. And they would cook themselves. Brahmana will not allow even Brahmana's wife to cook. Because for women, there is a natural tendency. So of course, we understand I am not man, I am not women. These are the dresses. But every dress has got certain features. So the woman dress or the woman mind and body, they have lot of attachment. So this attachment means lower modes of nature, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. So it is difficult for a woman to come to Sattva-guna unless they take to Krishna consciousness. And which is very difficult, Krishna consciousness. Of course, in Kali Yuga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given to everybody. So these people, Brahmanas, would not even allow their wives to cook because they will also then come to the level of material attachments. So Prabhupada explained they would cook the food themselves. Wives may assist in kitchen, in chopping the vegetables, in helping, but the cooking on flame, that is done by the husband only, the person, Brahmana himself. That is why if you ask our parents or grandparents, in any feasting, if you have to hire a cook, then a Brahmana is invited. Because this science was known to people. If we eat food cooked by a person of lower consciousness, then we also will adopt that consciousness. Now people are very greedy, everybody is working out, and now they have some people who are not of good character even, and they are coming and cooking in the house, and they and children are having food cooked by them. So who can stop people from gliding down the path of exponential increase in lust and greed? And thus disturbed minds, low moods, depression, criminal mentalities, and all these things are natural byproducts. So thus it is very, very important that a person in very good consciousness, after chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, those who are chanting every day, they should only cook food. And one person, what to speak of cooking, while begging rice, he got little lusty thoughts. And while eating that rice, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately figured out. So those people who are advanced, they can understand, they can judge the consciousness of the food. And there are many instances how the consciousness got altered because of accepting food from a materialist. So this is a great science, how food changes our mood. So when food is offered to Krishna, grossly it may look the same, but it is spiritualized. The energies are changed. And simply by eating that, a person keeps himself away from the control of material energies. And it leads to the building up of fine cells in the brain so that a person can understand Krishna consciousness. So thus it has got a great scientific impact on the body, and it is a very important element of Krishna consciousness. Devotees don't take anything except Krishna prasadam. Swamiji saw each of the nearly 12 dishes through its final stages, and his disciples carried them into the front room in pots one by one and placed them before the picture of Lord Chaitanya. There was halwa, dal, 2 sabjis, fancy rice, puris, samosas, sweet rice, apple chutney, and gulab jamuns or sweet balls, ISKCON bullets. They would call gulab jamun ISKCON bullets. Swamiji had spent much time slowly deep frying the sweet balls on a low heat until they had turned golden brown and full. Then, one by one, he had lifted them out of the ghee with a slotted spoon and put them to soak in sweet syrup. He recognized that these golden ghee-fried milk balls were his disciples' favorite prasadam treat. He called them ISKCON bullets because they were weapons in their war against Maya. So this Sankirtan movement is explained as a war against Maya. The material energy, her task is to keep the living entities conditioned. And the task of devotees is to declare a war against this energy influence. So how do we win a war? By shooting bullets. So when the disciples would go out distributing prasadam along with the books, so when they give these gulab jamuns to people, and people tell, because Americans never tasted gulab jamun, it was something out of the world. You put in the mouth and it melts immediately, and such a taste we have never had before. And they would like to have more of it, and then they will tell, now you have to come to Sunday for the feast. So these are bullets. Once it is shot, then the person is out of Maya. He will come to your party. He even allowed that a jar of ISKCON bullets floating in their syrup be always on hand in the front room, where his disciples could take them without asking permission and without observing any regulated hours. They could take as many as they liked. So of course, we don't have such facility now. It was in the early days of ISKCON. Prabhupada was encouraging disciples. Just one jar of gulab jamun was there every time. The disciples can take as much as they want. The first few love feasts were not very well attended, but the devotees were. So usually when we don't see enough people, sometimes devotees get discouraged. Oh, people have turned up very less. But here it was happening something reverse. The first few love feasts were not very well attended, but devotees were so enthusiastic about the feast prasadam that they showed no disappointment over the scarcity of guests. They were prepared to eat everything. They told no problem. It is good they have not come. We will eat everything. Sassarupa recollects, there was something called Brahmana spaghetti, which was rice flour noodles cooked in ghee and soaked in sugar water. And there was halwa, pushpanna rice with fried cheese balls, samosas, split mung beans fried into crunchy pellets and mixed with salt and spices, puris, gulab jamuns, and everything was succulent. That was the word Hayagriva used. Yes, he would say, expressing it waggishly, everything was very succulent. He tells, eating the feast was an intense experience. We were supposed to be subduing our senses all week, following strict regulations controlling the tongue. So when Prabhupada initiated them, so new disciples were encouraged to eat as much as possible, because if they are not full, they will go outside and eat unoffered food, which is impediment in Krishna consciousness. So he told, eat as much as possible. And after initiation, Prabhupada told to eat them just to keep body and soul together as less as possible. So entire week they would do austerity, have very little controlled diet, but once in a week on the love feast program, the disciples were allowed to enjoy their heart's content. And the feast was a kind of reward. Swamiji and Krishna were giving us taste of full spiritual ecstasy, even though we were still beginners and still in the material world. Before taking my plateful, I would pray, please let me remain in Krishna consciousness, because it is so nice and I am so fallen. Let me serve Swamiji and let me now enjoy this feast in transcendental bliss. So a person can get carried away. So although when people are new, it is good to enjoy feast up to the neck, as it has been mentioned by the devotees. But if one who is serious in spiritual life, he is ready for initiation, or those who have taken initiation should try to be regulated in prasadam also. Advanced devotees, yes, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was serving feast prasadam, devotees would eat up to 5 times their diet. We cannot eat even twice our capacity, but they would eat 5 times. This is called spiritual enjoyment. So prasadam has got, just like the book has got intellectual content as well as spiritual content in it. Similarly, prasadam has got spiritual taste as well as material taste. So if neophyte eats, neophyte is on material platform, then he will fall for the material taste. And too much indulgence in very tasty dishes very often can lead to, again, sex desire and other losing control of the senses. So one has to be regulated. But advanced devotees, because they are relishing spiritual taste of prasadam, they were able to eat 5 times their capacity when Mahaprabhu personally would serve them. So this disciple, he is praying that this is so tasty and I am so fallen. Krishna, please let me remain in Krishna consciousness while I am honoring prasadam. So honoring prasadam definitely leads to spiritual advancement, but advancement depends upon one's mood. If we are able to remember Krishna's lotus feet while honoring prasadam and chant Hare Krishna when tongue is free or in the mind, being grateful to Krishna and taking prasadam in a service mood, that I am pleasing Krishna by honoring, this is tasted by Krishna. So in this way, feeling gratefulness, thinking of Krishna, thanking Krishna, if we honor prasadam, great spiritual advancement happens. And I would begin eating, going from one taste sensation to another, the good rice, the favorite vegetable, the bread, and saving the gulab jamun for the last, thinking I can have seconds and if I like thirds. We would keep our eyes on the big pots, confident that there was as much as we wanted. It was time of rededication. We all enjoyed with completely open relish and sense gratification. Eating was very important. So gradually more people started coming up, and prasadam was very famous. It was renowned for being very succulent. And Prabhupada also tells that I made this Hare Krishna movement successful simply by this love feast. Nobody was coming to hear Hare Krishna. But when a person comes for eating, then you can preach and then they would pick up eventually. One time the devotees were eating so ravenously that they threatened to eat everything available before the guests had all been served. And Kirtanananda had to admonish them for their selfish attitude. Gradually, because new devotees. So gradually they were understanding that Sunday feast was not just for their fun and pleasure, but mainly to bring people to Krishna consciousness. So next important addition, or rather revival we should call it, in the movement in the West was republication of Back to Godhead. Although in 1944 in his household life Prabhupada started, and it was single-handedly that he did everything from raising money to writing, editing, printing, publishing, distributing, everything. But now he had disciples. So Prabhupada established the press. This was the instruction of his Guru Maharaj, you publish. And Prabhupada, with the help of his disciples, he purchased a couple of presses And then he started this Back to Godhead magazine. And Prabhupada was very hopeful, and he told this is our also very important weapon in the war against Maya. So please make it like Time magazine. It was very famous even back then in the 60s. Prabhupada wanted all his disciples to take part in it. Don't be dull, he said. Write something. He wanted to give his disciples back to Godhead for their own preaching. Brahmanand and Garg Muni took the first issues out that same night on bicycles, riding to every head shop on the Lower East Side, all the way to the 14th Street and as far as the West Village until they had distributed all 100 issues. So Prabhupada always wanted the disciples to write. Writing, he told, is very important. And this Back to Godhead is for distribution as well as for your writing, so that you improve your realizations. Without writing, nobody can become a preacher. Prabhupada tell, what would you preach? So if you write, you get clarity in concepts, and the spiritual life develops, and you develop realizations. So Prabhupada told, don't become dull. As soon as you have time, write something. And then the disciples whose names are mentioned here, that they are riding on bicycle and doing the job of a hawker, distributing magazines in every shop. So these disciples were filthy rich. They belonged to a family. Their father had a mansion of 50 bedrooms. Can we imagine? 50 bedrooms in America. Very rich person. But they were not satisfied in such richness also. And they came to Swamiji. Now such rich people are distributing newsletters, shop to shop, place to place, doing a very menial job, but they were completely satisfied. And one of the devotees still there serving Prabhupada very nicely, lives in Vrindavan. Another devotee left his body a couple of years ago, always remaining dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. They were among the first disciples, and they continued till their last breath, and there are other devotees still continuing. So thus Swamiji presented, Srila Prabhupada presented that just see, this is Krishna consciousness, not 50 bedroom mansion, but living in a small hut in a village where there are snakes and only mud with no proper facilities. But Krishna consciousness is what we need in our life. But then Srila Prabhupada knew that he did not have much time in his life, and 2 heart attacks he had suffered from already. And he was an old man, and the society's name is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So he was always thinking about his next move, how to take it to other places. So by Krishna's arrangement of the first few initiated disciples in New York, Mukunda and Janaki, they had plans to come to India. So they were not so surrendered, neither they were properly understanding that I should not make independent plans, never leave devotee association. Even though they took initiation, they had some feelings for the Swamiji, appreciation and support. But then they had some independent ideas. Let us go to India and have a visit. So Swamiji, of course, did not discourage. But when they were passing, when they were leaving, then just as a passing comment, Swamiji told them, they were going through San Francisco, that just see if we can start a center there. And he also, without giving much thought, he told, yes, thank you, Swamiji. And somehow by Krishna's inspiration, Mukund and Janaki had left for West Coast. Mukund had told Swamiji that he wanted to go to India to study Indian music. But they ended up in San Francisco and they could not go further. They stopped there. Now he had a better idea. Swamiji had told that see if you can start a center, and Krishna inspired them to do so. He wanted to rent a place and invite Swamiji to come and start this Hare Krishna movement in the Haight-Ashbury district, just as he was doing on the Lower East Side. He said that the prospects there for Krishna consciousness were very good. Sometimes during the evening gatherings in his room, Swamiji would ask whether Mukunda was ready on the West Coast. For months, Swamiji's going to the West Coast had been on a number of alternatives, but then, during the first week of January 1967, a letter arrived from Mukunda. He had rented a storefront in the heart of a Haight-Ashbury district on Frederick Street, and he told, "We are busy converting it into a temple now." And Swamiji announced, "I shall go immediately." And Mukunda told of a very nice plan they had made. So San Francisco was becoming the capital of the hippie movement. Of course, it started with the Lower East Side in the New York, but then most of them were gathering in San Francisco. And he told there's a gathering of tribes. We have spoken to all the leading rock bands who are leading the hippie music movement. And we are organizing this very big mantra rock show in which you can please come here. That will help us to raise money for the movement, as well as it will give us good popularity for spreading Krishna consciousness. So although he also sent a plane ticket for Swamiji, but the disciples in New York, they had other views. Brahmananda recollects. But we were shocked that he was going to leave. I never thought that Krishna consciousness would go beyond the Lower East Side, what to speak of New York City. I thought that this was it and it would stay here eternally. But Swamiji had bigger plans. He was planning a worldwide mission of Krishna consciousness. So disciples, they put forth various reasons that these people would not know how to respect you. They are just completely into drugs, have no idea, completely uncultured. You should not go there. You should give time to us. We have not learnt anything from you. And they were not sure how long Swamiji is going to be there. They had just got initiation. They wanted to learn more things. So Swamiji, he was fixed. He decided that I have to travel. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction is Nagradigram, every town and village, this movement has to spread. So he requested them, you please continue the activities that you have been doing and don't worry, I will come back very soon. This was his second winter in New York. He had launched a movement of Krishna consciousness. A few sincere boys and girls had joined. They were already well known on the Lower East Side, many notices in newspapers, and it was only the beginning. He had left Vrindavan for this. At first, he had not been certain whether he would stay in America for more than 2 months. In Butler, he had presented his books. But then in New York, he had seen how Dr. Mishra had developed things and other people also. So he got great hope. And he understood American people were looking for it. This was a nice place, 26 2nd Avenue. He had started here. The boys would keep it up. Some of them were donating their salaries. It was a good start. Bhaktivedanta looked at his watch. He put on his tweed winter coat and his hat and shoes, put his right hand in his bead bag and continued chanting. He walked out of the apartment, down the stairs, through the courtyard which was now frozen and still, its trees starkly bare without a single leaf remaining. And he left the storefront behind. He left even while Brahmananda, Rupanuga and Satsvarupa were at their office jobs. There was not even a farewell scene or a farewell address. January 16, 1967, San Francisco. When the announcement for United Airlines Flight 21 from New York came over the public address system, the group of about 50 hippies gathered closer together in anticipation. For a moment they appeared almost apprehensive, unsure what to expect or what the Swami would be like. And only few of them were knowing Swamiji. One Ranchor, the assistant who was traveling with Prabhupada, he was a new devotee and New Yorkers thought he would be the right person to assist Swamiji in the mission. Mukunda and his wife Janaki, who invited Swamiji, Ravindra Sarup, all from New York, and Allen Ginsberg, as we discussed, he was one of the leading poets of the hippie movement. He was there. And just a few days before, Allen had been one of the leaders of Human Be In. It was a big program in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, where over 200,000 had come together. A gathering of tribes. Swamiji would be pleased. Mukunda reminded everyone if they were all chanting Hare Krishna when he came through the gate. So Mukunda, the main coordinator, responsible person who invited Swamiji, and he wanted to hold a nice reception when he comes. So he distributed the leaflets, invited them for a mantra yoga event, and he chanted for 1 hour continuously. And then he requested that Swamiji from New York, he's coming here to start the Hare Krishna movement. And by that time, Swamiji was famous because the newspapers had started covering. It was a very new sensation. So the hippies, they were looking for such different methods of improved consciousness. So this Hare Krishna was in vogue and Swamiji was famous. So they also agreed that yes, we will also come to airport to receive Swamiji. And then he told, if you all chant, Swamiji would be very pleased. So they all were chanting, all 50 people in the airport. They were already familiar with the Hare Krishna mantra. They had heard about the Swamis chanting in the park in New York, or they had seen the article about the Swamiji and the chanting in the local underground paper, The Oracle. As the disembarking passengers entered the terminal gate and walked up the ramp, they looked in amazement at the reception party of flower-bearing chanters. Who are these people? Because first of all, they have weird dresses, beards, long hairs. And then they have flowers in their hands and incense and they are chanting. So the people were wondering what is happening in the airport. The chanters, however, were looking for somebody else. Gaze past these ordinary, tired-looking travelers searching for that special person who was supposed to be on the plane. Suddenly, walking toward them was Swamiji, golden complexioned, dressed in bright saffron robes. He had heard the chanting even before he had entered the terminal and he began to smile. He was happy and surprised. Glancing over the faces, he recognized only a few. Yet, here were 50 people receiving him and chanting Hare Krishna without his having said a word. So the crowd of hippies had formed a line on either sides and gave Swamiji a passage, and they were offering, as they were trained by Mukunda, they started offering incense and flowers to Swamiji. So Swamiji was very happy to receive this. So this is called the beginning of spiritual life. Somehow or the other, person should be induced to render service to a pure devotee. So Swamiji was very glad that knowingly or unknowingly, not even understanding philosophy, what Krishna is, what is pure devotees, they were engaged in the highest spiritual activity. Na tatha hi aghavan rajan puyeta tapa adibhi. Nothing purifies a person as the service done to a pure devotee of Krishna. So they were already engaged in the highest form of devotional service without their knowledge. So Swamiji, being a true representative of Krishna, was very glad how they are coming out of their miseries of life by rendering simple seva. So I also have experience when I was about to join temple. So I visited one of the centers which was close to the place where we were living. And there was festival, Narsimha Jayanti it was. And I was very new and I was not knowing much the importance of seva and all. But I had read philosophy and I was convinced that this thing is right thing, but I was not knowing the importance of seva still. And then Prabhu engaged me in some small services. You please take these garlands, you offer it on the frame and put the frame on the chair. And I was wondering, this anybody can do, why is engaging me in this seva, and very other small things he was giving me. And only later I appreciated that he was knowing how these things were very important for me to give me the required devotional credits to take shelter of lotus feet of Krishna completely. So all these activities, small seva done, is very important for advancement in spiritual life. So they would offer it to Swamiji, flowers, incense, and the Swamiji would return it to them. One person would give flower, he will offer to other person, it becomes prasadam. In this way, everybody got prasadam. A nice Cadillac car was waiting for Swamiji, he sat in that till the car started driving away. He was exchanging these flowers and gifts with all the people who had gathered to see him at the airport. The Cadillac belonged to Have Cohen. Who is Have Cohen? The same person who gave Swamiji his first accommodation in the Bowery. You know, that roommate we discussed was David, and his roommate told, I am moving to California. He was the same person, Harvey. And he came to receive Swamiji in his own car. Where is Harvey? Swamiji asked. He is driving, Mukunda said. Oh, is that you? I didn't recognize you. Harvey smiled. Welcome to San Francisco, Swamiji. Bhaktivedanta Swami was happy to be in another big western city on behalf of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Lord Chaitanya. The further west one goes, Lord Chaitanya had said, the more materialistic are the people. Yet Lord Chaitanya had also said that Krishna consciousness should be spread all over the world. Swamiji's godbrothers had often wondered about Lord Chaitanya's statement that one day the name of Krishna would be sung in every town and village. Perhaps that word should be taken symbolically. They said otherwise, what could it mean, Krishna in every town? But Bhaktivedanta Swami had deep faith in that statement by Lord Chaitanya and in the instruction of his spiritual master. Here he was in the far western city of San Francisco, and already people were chanting before his arrival. They had enthusiastically received him with flowers and kirtan, and all over the world there were other cities much like this one. So then he came to the temple, and people were already anticipating him, and he started giving a lecture. It was a similar storefront, just like in New York. The movement, the temple was nothing but a converted storefront. In a similar fashion, here they got a storefront, and Swamiji's residence up a couple of floors in the adjoining apartment. So after his lecture, arrival address, he left the storefront and walked next door and up the 2 flights of stairs to his apartment. As he entered his apartment, number 32, he was followed not only by his devotees and admirers, but also by reporters from San Francisco's main newspapers, the Chronicle and Examiner. So, reporter asked, "Downstairs you said you were inviting everyone to Krishna consciousness. Does that include the Haight-Ashbury bohemians and beatniks?" Swamiji, "Yes, everyone, including you or anybody else. Be he or she what is called an acid head or hippie or something else. But once he is accepted for training, he becomes something else from what he had been before." Reporter asked, "What does one have to do to become a member of your movement?" Swamiji says, "There are 4 prerequisites. I do not allow my students to keep girlfriends." He's speaking this in America at that time. "I prohibit all kinds of intoxicants, including coffee, tea, and cigarettes. I prohibit meat eating, and I prohibit my students from taking part in gambling." So Prabhupada was very straightforward, we can see. Reporter, "Do these shall not commandments extend to the use of LSD, marijuana, and other narcotics?" Swamiji, "I consider LSD to be an intoxicant. I do not allow any one of my students to use that or any intoxicant. I train my students to rise early in the morning, to take a bath early in the day, and to attend prayer meetings 3 times a day. Our sect is one of austerity. It is the science of God." So Prabhupada said the lines very clear from the beginning. Although it is the epicenter of the hippie counterculture movement, but he is not going to compromise the standards. So Prabhupada preached very nicely the philosophy to the reporters. He was always trying to impart Krishna consciousness. Even though it was his experience, reporters would not generally report philosophy. But nevertheless, he was preaching to reporters, and through reporters, all other people and his disciples who were very eager to hear philosophy from him. He leaned back against the wall and took off the garlands he had received that day, as many people offered garlands to him. But one special thing happens here. He removed all of them until only one beaded necklace, a common inexpensive item with small bell on it, remained hanging around his neck. He held it, inspected the workmanship, and toyed with it. "This is special." So what is special in it? It was not very expensive. It was an ordinary necklace. Prabhupada told. He kept on toying with it, looking at it. He said, "This is special because it was made with devotion." He continued to pay attention to the necklace as if receiving it had been one of the most important events of the day. The most important event of the day could be a person has got some prize, he holds a shield or trophy, but here Srila Prabhupada is beholding and examining this ordinary looking necklace. So this is what Krishna actually wants, and Srila Prabhupada, being his representative, was aware. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prachati. So Krishna has no dearth. Krishna has everything. Krishna is not interested in our property, our money, our belongings, no. But Krishna is interested in our love. So when we offer these things to Krishna, our possessions, with love and devotion, then it is accepted by Krishna. So of course it does not mean that I keep my possessions with us and let me offer just love. That is artificial. That is not possible. So whatever we have should be employed in the service of Krishna. But the most important factor is it should be done with devotion. So if you are poor, you cannot afford anything to give to Krishna. Does not matter water we can offer. So please offer water to Krishna. Leaf we can offer. Please offer leaf to Krishna. So I request all of you, please start offering something to Krishna every day. A little glass of water you can offer and pray to Krishna, Krishna, now I am not capable to offer you anything else or all the food that I can do. So kindly accept this offering and make me eligible to offer everything to you, whatever I eat. But meanwhile, some fruit, milk, a glass of water, flower, tulsi leaf, or any other leaf, with great love and respect, if we start offering to Krishna, so Krishna takes the most important element, devotion, out of it. And it is this devotion which Krishna wants, which leads us to spiritual advancement in life. So Prabhupada took that necklace thinking that it is the most important event of the day, reception of that necklace. San Francisco's largest paper, the Chronicle, also ran an article, Swamiji in Hippie Land. The article began, a holy man from India described by his friend and beat poet Allen Ginsberg as one of the more conservative leaders of his faith, launched a kind of evangelistic effort yesterday in the heart of San Francisco hippie heaven. So Swamiji did not like that why they are calling us conservative. In respect to sex and drugs, Mukunda suggested, of course, we are conservative in that sense. That means we are simply following the Shastra. We cannot depart from Bhagavad Gita, but we are not conservative. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so strict that he would not even look on a woman, but we are accepting everyone into this movement, regardless of sex, caste, position, or whatever. So sannyasis are supposed to have very strict standards. But Prabhupada, being personification of mercy of Lord Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave everybody the chance, irrespective of man, woman, intelligent, unintelligent, rich, poor, spiritually advanced, or impoverished, everybody was given the chance. So we are not conservative, we are very, very liberal. We are not conservative, Swamiji said. Then finally, it was time of the main event. And although some of the New York disciples had objected, Swamiji still scheduled for the mantra rock dance at the Avalon Ballroom. It wasn't proper, they had said, for the devotees out in San Francisco to ask their spiritual master to go to such a place. All the people who collected in this ballroom, they were expecting around 4,000 people. They were all into drugs. Most of them would be high on drugs. But nevertheless, the disciples were very hopeful that what is the harm that somebody, rock band is coming and singing, and then Swamiji will come and he will not compromise anyway. He will speak philosophy and he will chant Hare Krishna and they'll benefit. So Swamiji also, the disciples were very new. He did not want to discourage and he agreed to come on this occasion. And they spoke to all the leading bands and so much of crowd gathered and many famous leaders of the hippie movement, many musicians, they had all gathered. And it was like a regular concert. Rather, it was very difficult scene for ordinary spiritualists to behold. But Swamiji was prepared. Swamiji was a warrior and he was a servant of Lord Chaitanya. Wherever Krishna, whatever arrangement has been done, he was willing to accept it for spreading the mission. Ordinarily, a person would not like to even speak to a person who is in intoxication or into drugs. But he was willing to spread Krishna consciousness even in the midst of such people. So the mantra concert started and it was 9:30 that Prabhupada left his apartment and he was escorted to the Avalon Ballroom. At 10 o'clock, Swamiji walked up the stairs of the Avalon, followed by Kirtananda and Ranchora. As he entered the ballroom, devotees blew conch shells, someone began a drum roll, and the crowd parted down the center, all the way from the entrance to the stage, opening a path for him to walk. With his head held high, Swamiji seemed to float by as he walked through the strange milieu, making his way across the ballroom floor to the stage. Suddenly, the light show changed. Pictures of Krishna and his pastimes flashed onto the wall. Krishna and Arjuna riding together on Arjuna's chariot, Krishna eating butter. I'll just take 5 more minutes, please allow me. Krishna eating butter, Krishna subduing the whirlwind, demon, Trinavarta, Krishna playing the flute. As Swamiji walked through the crowd, everyone stood applauding and cheering. He climbed the stairs and seated himself softly on a waiting cushion. The crowd quieted. Looking over at Allen Ginsberg, Swamiji said, You can speak something about the mantra. Alan began to tell of his understanding and experience with the Hare Krishna mantra. He told how Bhaktivedanta Swami had opened a storefront on 2nd Avenue and had chanted Hare Krishna in Tompkins Square Park. And he invited everyone to the Frederick Street Temple. This was San Francisco Temple. I especially recommend the early morning kirtans, he said, for those who coming down from LSD want to stabilize their consciousness on re-entry. Swamiji spoke, giving a brief history of the mantra. Then he looked over at Alan again. He told Allen Ginsberg, "You may chant." Alan began playing his harmonium and chanting into the microphone, singing the tune he had brought from India. Gradually, more and more people in the audience caught on and began chanting. Alan recollects, "We sang Hare Krishna all evening. It was absolutely great. An open thing. It was the height of the Haight-Ashbury spiritual enthusiasm. It was the first time that there had been a musical scene in San Francisco where everybody could be a part of it and participate. Everybody could sing and dance rather than listen to other people sing and dance." As the chanting spread throughout the hall, some of the hippies got to their feet, held hands, and danced and sang Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Janaki recollects, people did not know what they were chanting for, but to see that many people chanting, even though most of them were intoxicated, made Swamiji very happy. He loved to see the people chanting. Hayagriva tells, "Standing in front of the bands, I could hardly hear, but above all, I could make out the chanting of Hare Krishna building steadily. On the wall behind, a slide projected a huge picture of Krishna in a golden helmet with a peacock feather afloat in his hand. Then Swamiji stood up, lifted his arms, and began to dance. He gestured for everyone to join him, and those who were still seated stood up and began dancing and chanting and swaying back and forth, following Swamiji's gentle dance." Roger recollects, "The ballroom appeared as if it was a human field of wheat blowing in the wind. It produced a calm feeling, in contrast to the usual Avalon ballroom atmosphere of gyrating energies. The chanting of Hare Krishna continued for over an hour, and finally everyone was jumping and yelling, even crying and shouting. Someone placed a microphone before Swamiji and his voice resounded strongly over the powerful sound system. The tempo quickened. Swamiji was perspiring profusely. Kirtananda insisted that the kirtan stop. Swamiji was too old for this, he said. It might be harmful. But the chanting continued faster and faster until the words of the mantra finally became indistinguishable amidst the amplified music and the chorus of thousands of voices. Then suddenly it ended, and all that could be heard was the loud hum of the amplifiers and Swamiji's voice, ringing out, offering obeisances to his spiritual master. Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajikacharya Ashtottara Shat Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. This is how we end the kirtans, by offering respects to all the previous spiritual masters and the Guru Parampara. Swamiji made his way off stage through the heavy smoke and crowds and down the front stairs with Kirtananda and Ranchor close behind him. Alan announced the next rock group. As Swamiji left the ballroom and the appreciative crowd behind, he commented, "This is no place for a brahmachari." So Prabhupada understood that this is not place for a brahmachari, a civilized person, any sincere spiritual aspirant. But nevertheless, we see here that the most fallen of the people who were having all the disqualifications, they were not even on a moral platform materially, but these people were able to execute the highest standard of spiritual activity. What is that? Tepus tapaste juhvu snasnurarya brahma nochur nam grananti yete. The scriptures are telling a person has to finish all the austerities. Many strict tapasyas are mentioned. Do not eat for so many days, or eat only fruits and milk, or some people survive only on water. They keep themselves neck deep in water in cold winters. They keep themselves in the middle of fire in hot sunlight. Like this, lot of tapasya a person has to perform for purification, advancement. And then you have to go and take bath in various rivers across the country in all the holy places. There are many, many holy places in the country. And you have to read so many Vedic literatures to come to a platform of knowledge. You have to finish all the Vedic rituals. And then a person is able to chant Brahma Nuchu Nam Gradanti Ete. So a person who is chanting Hare Krishna, it is not easy. He should have finished taking bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. He should have finished reading all the Vedic literatures. He should have done all the Vedic rituals, have perfect Vedic understanding, done all tapasya, and then a person can come to Brahma Nuchu Nam Gradanti, chanting the names of Krishna. So once one of the disciples asked Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, we have all these qualifications. We are chanting Hare Krishna regularly. So Prabhupada explained, you are loitering in the street. I created that piety in you. That is why the scriptures are telling, Na tatha hi agavan rajan puyeta tap adibi, tapasya and etc. So many purification processes are required for advancement in spiritual life, but nothing is as purifying as association of a pure devotee. So thus we can see all these Westerners, New York and more so in San Francisco, who had no hope of spiritual life, were following the highest spiritual practice simply because of the presence of pure devotee of Krishna. So thus the most important element to realize actual advancement in spiritual life is the association and the service of a pure devotee of Krishna. They can raise a person to a platform which cannot be attained even after many, many births. So this is the significance of this very special event. There are many more interesting pastimes, how Srila Prabhupada continued in San Francisco and how it was very, very difficult to tame these wild people, how he dealt with them, made them devotees. We will see all these things tomorrow. Yesterday's winner of quiz is Mr. or Miss? Mrs. Bhuvana Sana. Oh, Miss Bhuvana Sana. She's from USA, only 14 years old. But her realization is very mature, devotees are telling. And she summarized the whole session, and also she's seeking blessings to chant holy name every day without fail. So Bhuvana, 14-year-old devotee, it's very nice to see. Bhuvana, if you are hearing, many congratulations. Krishna has blessed you. At a very young age, you are able to realize Krishna consciousness. We'll pray to Shri Shri Nitai Gaurang, Radha Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, that you very soon chant purely the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So I request all the other devotees also, please keep sharing your realization in the comment section. And please try to help us share this teaching with others by liking it, sharing it with as many people as possible. Thank you for the patience to hear an extra session. Tomorrow we'll meet again with extended pastimes in San Francisco. Hare Krishna.